Believe it or not, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is not a perfect video game. I've touched upon this before. Ultimate is my favorite entry in the Smash series, as is the case with many people. I think. Do we not like this game anymore? Even so, I too have plenty of gripes with it. Some issues unique to this entry, and other problems that are pervasive throughout the series. But if you've come here expecting to listen to someone rag on major faults in fighter design, stage selection, modes, or anything that affects the gameplay and content in a meaningful way, I'm afraid you've been misinformed. Here and now, I want to be a bit more petty than that. I'd like to harp on about some of my weirdest, most specific, and ultimately, inconsequential hang-ups with Smash Ultimate. In short, things that just sorta bug me. Why? I mean, I think it's fun. But also there's something to be said about a blemish being so minor and seemingly simple to patch up that it wraps around to being rather frustrating in its own way. It's like if you tell someone to paint a wall black, and after all is said and done, you realize there's one itty-bitty spot they missed. Now, objectively, it's not a big deal. It's not like they used lime green paint instead, and next to no one will notice or care about the imperfection. But now that you noticed it, you're just here wondering, how? Alright, maybe it's still unclear what the hell I'm yapping about, so let's get into a straightforward set of examples. Names. You guys all know this stage, right? It's only one of the most popular maps in the entire Smash series. Why, it's Hyrule Temple. Actually, it's just Temple. People will sometimes tack Hyrule onto there because it was labeled that way back in Melee. However, this top line only indicates the greater location of the stage, kind of like listing the country to which a city belongs. That is to say, Hyrule is not supposed to be part of this stage's name. Now, that's a fan misconception, not a mistake any of the games have made. So why are we even talking about it? Well, the stage is based on the dungeons found in Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Those dungeons are, of course, called palaces, not temples. This, as you might have guessed, is a localization error. In the Japanese version of Zelda 2, these buildings are called temples. That name was carried over for the Japanese version of Melee, and I guess the guys over at Nintendo of America just translated that name directly, not realizing that it contradicted their prior localization of the source material. The same exact thing happened with another stage originating in Melee, Rainbow Cruise. That's a stage based on the worst level in Super Mario 64, Rainbow Ride. It was called Rainbow Cruise in the Japanese script, which carried over to Melee, second verse same as the first. I understand how both of these happened, though it's a little strange that they've stuck around. After all, Smash Ultimate did end up renaming some other legacy stages to give them more accurate labels. And another detail Ultimate stages include is the logo of their game of origin. Rainbow Cruise is specified as being from Super Mario 64, but Temple is simply stated to be from The Legend of Zelda, not Zelda 2 in particular, even though it definitely is from Zelda 2, and no, some anachronistic Wind Waker Hylian text does not change that. I digress. As far as the names of these two stages go, I'm willing to admit that they are accurate
from a certain point of view.
And I suppose you could say the same for a much more recent addition to Smash, the Minecraft stage, which is quite creatively called Minecraft World. Weird name, that. Like, imagine if this stage was named Mario World. Oh wait, as I was saying, I can't get on this one's case for being wrong, because it technically isn't. It is what it is, right? It's not like Minecraft setting has an official name. That being said, there was a much better option, in my opinion. Why isn't the name of this stage New World? That's the default title Minecraft spits out when you go to create a... I think you know how that sentence ends. I feel like this is what everyone thought a Minecraft stage would be called, so that makes it especially odd that it didn't happen. The name New World would still serve as a generic label, which is certainly what the goal was here, but it would be doing that while also being an additional cute little reference to how the game works. Kind of like how the Smashville name is meant to be what the hypothetical Animal Crossing player decided to call their town. Instead, we have something that's sensible, but awkward, and a little boring. Mind you, iffy naming choices aren't exclusive to Ultimate stages. They sometimes plague the fighters as well, more specifically the fighters' moves. One of the more obvious instances of this can be found on Samus. Her famous neutral special is called the Charge Shot. This is based on one of her abilities from the Metroid series, the Charge Beam. Unlike with a couple of those stages, this isn't a localization quirk. In both the English and Japanese versions of the Metroid games, this thing is called the Charge Beam, and yet in both languages, it's changed to the Charge Shot for Smash. I've seen proposed explanations for this discrepancy, such as,
well, it doesn't work exactly like it does in Metroid.
And
It's referring to the action, not the weapon.
as far as the former goes, there are a lot of moves in Smash that take liberties with how they usually function, yet still keep the familiar name. And on the latter, I'm sorry, that's a little dumb, because in the Metroid series, the move itself is also called the Charge Beam. As far as I can tell, the only time the name Charge Shot has been used in the franchise is a logbook entry in Metroid Prime Hunters, a game that was only released after the move had been called that in Smash for around 6 or 7 years. Though it's worth noting that special moves and final smashes aren't the only parts of a fighter's kit that have names. In case you didn't know, almost every single move has an official name, several of which can be viewed right in Ultimate's tips list. Take, for example, Mewtwo's forward air, a staple attack for that character, and a fairly simple concept. Mewtwo gathers ghostly energy in its hand and uses it to cut through an opponent. These are the same purple particles seen throughout Mewtwo's moveset, including in Shadow Ball. Which checks out, because another ghost-type move in the Pokemon series is Shadow Claw. That's why in Smash, this forward air is called Shadow Scratch. Once more, not a localization thing. And to be fair, Mewtwo can't normally learn Shadow Claw in Pokemon. But to be fair, it also can't learn Shadow Scratch because that move doesn't exist. If the name and concept is already gonna be so close to a real Pokemon move, you might as well go all the way. That's the thing, both of these moves get on my nerves because they're half right. So what's stopping them from being full right? That was a lot about names, I'll admit. So why don't we move on from things you read to things you hear? Hear with what, you ask? Well, it's today's sponsor, the human cochlea. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but it really bothers me that Mario still has his voice lines from Brawl. He's not the only fighter in that camp, of course, but I guess it irks me with him specifically because I find Charles Martinet's delivery in that game a little off.
Woohoo! Yeah!
To my ears, he sounds raspier, more strained. Maybe he was sick, like me. I f***ing love the winter. In all seriousness, I suspect this direction was taken in Brawl to match that game's darker and grittier aesthetic. But the series has since moved on from that to something colorful, where these cartoony characters pretty closely resemble how they look in their home games. In Smash 4 and Ultimate, Mario's dehydrated cries stick out like a sore thumb, and I'm not sure why they didn't have Charles Martinet record new lines, or at least reuse his work from other games like in Melee. Well, now that Mario has a new voice actor in his home series, maybe he will sound different in the next Smash game. Dude, yes. At least Mario has a voice. Isabelle, one of Ultimate's newcomers, is strangely silent in the game. In the Animal Crossing series, even within the constraints of Animalese, Isabelle has a very recognizable, cutesy voice. I even made it into her guest appearance in Mario Kart 8, so why is it not in Smash Ultimate? Yeah, she's a semi-clone of Villager and that character is silent, but Isabelle shouldn't be. As long as she's on stage, I should be bombarded with... I've done a better Isabelle before. Moving away from voices, there are a select few fighters whose sound design I just about can't stand. The one that really grinds my gears is Toon Link. In Ultimate, Toon Link received a brand new suite of sound effects for his sword attacks. And, I hate how Toon Link's sword sounds in this game. Not enough to ruin the character for me or anything, but enough to make me question what they were thinking. Well, the sounds are undoubtedly cartoonish, which on the surface fits this character. The thing is, the Wind Waker already houses distinct sound design. In that game, Link's sword slashes are punctuated by rich, reverberating impacts and these super satisfying orchestral stingers. And to make Toon Link feel more authentic in Smash, they didn't port those over, but instead chose to make up shrill swooshes that make my human cochlea bleed. Stop it! Okay, before I go deaf, I want to touch upon Smash Ultimate's soundtrack. In a series first, stages no longer have unique track lists, but rather allow you to play any track from that stage's franchise. That, by and large, is an awesome feature. Unfortunately, there are a couple annoying little things that spawn from it. For some reason, the Super Mario series and Mario Kart series are considered separate entities within Ultimate. What this means is you can't play any Mario Kart music on the non-Kart Mario stages and vice versa. This sucks for both sets of stages, but the Mario Kart maps definitely got the shorter end of the stick, as there are only 15 Mario Kart music tracks, as opposed to the Super Mario series 91. Mario Kart's gonna have that little to it. What's the harm in just conflating the lists? Other Mario spin-offs, like the sports games and RPGs, have their music simply included with the main series stuff, so what the hell happened here? Also, as we've established, this Yoshi's Island stage comes from Super Mario World, yet it's listed as a Yoshi series stage, so they had to classify the athletic theme from Super Mario World as a Yoshi series track just so it would be able to play on that stage, despite the fact that Super Mario World isn't a Yoshi series game. To make matters worse, Super Mario and Mario Kart share the same exact series symbol, and you guys mind if I point out some more of those? For the most part, they range from obvious and inoffensive to pretty cool. But there are a few that make me scratch my head. First up, the Persona symbol. And yeah, I'm even surprising myself a little with that one. I think in a vacuum, it looks amazing. But it is curious that the symbol they chose to represent the Persona series is that of the Phantom Thieves of Hearts, exclusively a Persona 5 thing. While Joker's Challenger Pack is primarily based around that game, it does also include content from the rest of the Persona series. Bonus nitpick, I want shit from Persona 1 and 2. My point is, I feel that it might have made more sense to go with an icon that's indicative of Persona as a whole, like a butterfly or the mask on the back of the tarot cards, or maybe something that represents the entire Megami Tensei franchise. You know, future-proofing for Demi-Fiend's arrival in the next game. Please, 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 please. In addition, why is the icon for the Fire Emblem series not the Fire Emblem? For the uninitiated, that title isn't a random pair of words. The Fire Emblem is an actual MacGuffin within the franchise. What I have in mind is the good old binding shield, and not every entry's equivalent looks like that. But I still think it would be more fitting than the current inspiration for the series symbol, the falchion, which is only really relevant in a handful of titles. I don't know, call me crazy, but if it's literally called the Fire Emblem, it should probably be used to represent Kirby! On the bright side, Persona and Fire Emblem got neat-looking symbols, which is more than I can say for Final Fantasy.
FF.
Just took the initials straight from the logo and called it a day. That's lame. Not the only one to go to that well, and while I don't prefer any instance of it, Final Fantasy stands out to me. I think the obvious choice here is to use something specific to Final Fantasy VII, since, unlike Persona, the content here is wholly pulled from that game and its offshoots. And just a stone's throw away. Admittedly, with this one, my issue lies less with the series symbol and more with the title. Terry Bogard and the content he's packaged with is labeled as being from the Fatal Fury series. With the man himself, that's accurate, but when we skim through all the extras, particularly the music, I mean, this covers all things SNK. Not a first by any means, Pac-Man's bundled with other classic Namco junk, but in this case, I think denoting the series as the King of Fighters would have made it a bit more appropriate as a broad category, since that series is already an SNK crossover. As with most of what I've brought up, I am being pedantic. I suppose we're encroaching upon UI now, so let's keep rambling about that. Over in the Smash submenu, I'm not completely sure why Squad Strike is out here on its own and not stowed away in Special Smash with the other unique battle modes. I think my perspective might be skewed on this, since I vividly remember Squad Strike being revealed alongside Smashdown, which does fall under Special Smash. And while the former does have its own elaborate interface when setting things up, I'm not convinced that's enough of a distinction to not organize it with the rest. At the end of the day, this is a special type of Smash. I guess what I'm getting at is that it's often unclear why certain things are put under an extra layer of menus and others aren't. In the same vein, this inventory button in the Spirits Collection submenu has always confused me a tad. The Spirits menu in general is dense. It does have to contain the adventure mode, spirit board, and all of the functions related to the collectibles themselves. Overall, I think it's handled about as well as it could be. But again, inventory over here. Clicking that button opens a pop-up menu with the options Spirit List and Items. Items is self-explanatory, it brings you to all of your spirit-related consumables, but the Spirit List is what loses me a bit. It's a repository of every spirit you've logged over the course of your playtime, not necessarily the spirits you currently own. In other words, this isn't your inventory. So why is it sorted under inventory? I don't think that extra segmentation even needs to exist. Speaking of spirits, if you've ever tried to start a fresh save file in adventure mode, you would have noticed that you hang on to the spirits you might have collected during a previous playthrough. This is because you can get spirits from other game modes, and obviously those have to be accessible within World of Light, so your inventory,
Real inventory this time.
is synced across the whole game, even when beginning a brand new run of the campaign. It makes logistical sense, but it does mean it's a little tricky to go into a replay of adventure mode with a truly clean slate. Even without choosing New Game Plus, you'll be starting your next playthrough with endgame equipment, access to every single facility, and the spirits that serve as keys. It's not impossible or all that hard to get around this, just boot up the game with a different profile. It's still irritating to have to do that in order to get the intended experience more than once. In fairness, that is an experience that most players aren't likely to seek out. For more replayable single-player content, they'll be drawn to a little section called Games and More. That label got bashed to hell and back during the Smash 4 days. It didn't help that at the time the submenu was an absolute hodgepodge. It included the vault and options for Pete's sake. In Ultimate, the category is far more focused. As the description says, this is where you go to train, create, and win. It's got your smaller solo/co-op modes and creation tools. Games and More is still an oddly vague name for that umbrella though, and you know what? I kind of get why they've stuck with it. I've been racking my brain since 2018 trying to come up with a clearer, succinct term for a section containing these features, and quite frankly, I've got nothing. Yes, I am criticizing something while not being able to do better myself. I'm allowed to do that! Whoa! Regardless, the Games and More submenu is undoubtedly improved from its initial appearance. If you want something that's an objective downgrade from Smash 4 to Ultimate, yet does not matter in the slightest to any sane individual, look no further than the fact I can't watch Byleth's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad reveal in-game. So, I doubt many people care to remember this, but Smash 4's newcomer reveal trailers were accessible in the Wii U version's vault. Seems after Sakurai snapped away adventure mode and its cutscenes, the movie section had to be filled with something, so why not the thing that effectively replaced those cutscenes? I kid, because trailers were also packaged in Brawl's vault. There, it served a bit more of a purpose, as old uploads of those videos are rough, to say the least. So them being available in the game means that, to this day, there's a reliable way to watch them in halfway decent quality. That wasn't necessary by Smash for Wii U's release, since Nintendo themselves had been uploading that game's trailers in HD. As such, I never really watched them this way. But it was still kinda cool to know I could if I so desired. If nothing else, it was another facet to the virtual museum side of Smash Bros. No such luck in Ultimate's movie section though. Here, you can watch the opening, the how to play video, the adventure mode cutscenes, but not any of the game's trailers. Arguably the best lineup of trailers in the franchise's history, lest we forget. And it bears repeating, who cares? Just like with Smash 4, all of them have been uploaded in crisp quality by Nintendo. Even as a content creator,
Allegedly.
it's way quicker and easier to download the videos from YouTube than it would be to force my capture card to sit down and drink it in. Yet, their absence from Ultimate's vault does make its movie section feel just the slightest bit incomplete. The fact that the previous entries did include their respective trailers makes Ultimate's omission of them stand out as a negligible flaw, but a flaw nonetheless. It's the spot on the wall, and by God, I have noticed it. Also, if the trailers had been included, they may have been more motivated to categorize the movies. I could go on and on about this sort of stuff. Once you whip out the microscope, there's plenty to pick apart. But at this point, I want to hand it off to you. Tell me about the weird, niche, innocuous bones you have to pick with Smash Ultimate or the Smash series in general. Who knows, maybe I'll revisit this topic at some point. Like, subscribe, use Fortnite code. Shoutouts to my channel members, Antis Munchie Useless Nickname, Tibby, and Pokemon Professor Logston. As always, your support means a whole lot. So much so that I promise to get back on track with my upload schedule. No promises, but I promise.